Today is Wednesday, May 4th, 2005, and this is the beginning of an interview with Virgil, Julius, Caldwell at the Erlanger HealthLink Plus office, Chattanooga, Tennessee. Mr. Caldwell was born on July 3rd, 1930, and is now 74 years old. My name is Michael Willie, and I'll conduct this interview. Mr. Caldwell, could you state for the recording your full name and its spelling, please?
Virgil Julius Caldwell. That's capital V-I-R-G-I-L, capital J-U-L-I-U-S, capital C-A-L-D-W-E-L-L.
Okay, and during which war did you serve, Mr. Caldwell?
The Korean War.
And in which branch of the service?
United States Army.
And what was your highest rank attained?
Corporal.
Okay, where were you born, Mr. Caldwell?
I was born in Brownsville, Tennessee.
Okay, whereabouts is Brownsville, Tennessee?
Brownsville, Tennessee is 60 miles east of Memphis, Tennessee. It's located in Haywood County.
Okay. Now, tell me about your family. Did you have any brothers or sisters growing up?
I had two sisters. I have one now. And no brothers.
Are they older, younger?
Older.
They're both older?
Mm-hmm.
Two older sisters.
Yeah.
Oh, man, I bet you had a hard head by the time. All right. Now, you were born in Brownsville. Were you raised there also?
We moved from Brownsville in 1939. We moved to Jackson, Tennessee. That's just 26 miles east of Brownsville.
Okay. So that's a midpoint between Nashville and Memphis, right?
Yeah. And I grew up really in Jackson, Tennessee.
Okay. Now, what did your dad do for a living, or what's your family?
My father was a minister, pastor.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is that why you moved to Jackson?
That's right.
Okay. Did your mother work outside the home?
No, she didn't. She had been a teacher before I was born, but she stopped teaching to raise me.
Okay. All right. Now, obviously, you were old enough to remember World War II. Do you remember, what were your memories of World War II growing up in that area?
Well, I tell you what, I had a job working in a grocery store during World War II. I was very young at the time, but I remember the goods that were rationed and how the owner of the grocery store would kind of give special favors to those persons who were his best customers. And I had to be a part of it because I was working for him.
Yeah, can I close your eyes? Out the back door.
Yeah.
All right. Now, did you graduate high school, or what was the highest grade that you attained in Jackson?
Well, I finished high school in Jackson.
Okay. Now, what did you do after high school?
I went to Lane College, which is also in Jackson, Tennessee.
Okay. All right. Now, what year did you graduate high school and go to college?
I graduated from high school in 1947.
Okay.
And then I graduated from Lane College in 1951.
Okay, so you graduated from Lane College in 1951 with a degree in what now?
I had a Bachelor of Arts degree.
Okay.
I was a double major in music and social studies.
Okay. So what were you going to do with that at that point? Now, your mother was a teacher, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so was that your track? Is that what you wanted to do?
Well, no, I never wanted to be a teacher. Well, I tell you what, my father being a minister when I was a little boy, I suppose all boys want to follow in their father's footsteps. So I wanted to be a preacher, but as I grew up and I saw some of the problems that he had as a pastor, I wanted no part of that.
The business part of it.
Yeah, that's right. And then I tell you what, I started playing music very early. And I really wanted to be a jazz musician, I started playing clarinet in high school band, and I wanted to be the next Benny Goodman or Woody Herman or something like that. And then I worked in this grocery store, and the owner made a whole lot of money, and I kind of idolized him, and I wanted to be a grocery store owner, so I had a lot of ambition when I was growing up. But I really never wanted to be a teacher. And when I got out of college, I wanted to go to graduate school. As a matter of fact, that's what I was planning to do when I was drafted into the Army. I don't know how I was going. I didn't have a grant or anything, but I wanted to go to graduate school.
Now, were you able to play music around Jackson? Were you still playing through high school and college?
Oh, yes.
I mean, like in bands or in? I mean,
Yes, I've, played in the college, but didn't have much of a college band at Lane College at that time. But the little band that we had, I was a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I played clarinet in the high school band.
Okay. All right. Now you graduate college in 1951.
That's right.
All right. Then let's clear this out because I'm not really. It's hard to differentiate. I've not talked to many Korean veterans.
I see.
Do you have a deferment when you're in college?
No, I didn't have a deferment.
Okay. I didn't know if college carried a deferment at that time. But regardless, when you got out of college, how soon after you graduated did you?
I was drafted in September. I graduated in May, around the last of May or 1st of June in 1951. And I had a summer job as a playground director there in Jackson, Tennessee. And then in September, I believe it was September 13th that when I know it was around mid-September, I was drafted.
Okay. Now, at that time, were you still hoping to go to graduate school, or were you just?
Yes, I was hoping, but I didn't have an definite plan.
Right. Okay. So, now, also, were you single at that time? Did you
Yes,
have a relationship? Okay.
I was single.
Oh, okay. So you really got nothing holding you back, but I'm sure you're not too happy. Now, what was your perception of Korea at that time? Was the war going strong, or was the war on at all, or what did you know about it?
It was going strong, and I had no desire to be a part of it. However, when I was drafted, I didn't rebel against it at all because it was a chance to see the world, so to speak.
Right, and get the GI Bill, right?
Oh yeah.
Get your graduate school. Okay, so now you're drafted in September?
September.
And then how does that work? Do you say you have a week, do you have a month? How long do you have to get your affairs in order before?
I really don't recall just how long it was. It really wasn't a long time. But I just remember getting the notice that, what does the letter say? Greetings, your neighbors and your friends or something? I don't know.
I've always just thought you were cordially invited to join our war. Okay. All right. So now where do you go for induction?
To Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Okay. All right. And this is this still September, or is it moving?
Yes, just September.
Okay.
I went straight to Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
All right. So it's probably still pretty hot there in Fort Jackson.
Yeah.
All right. Now, were you in pretty good shape at that time physically?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So physically, basic training then is a piece of cake.
Oh, yeah.
Challenging. What about the idea? Now you're a college graduate, but now you are taking orders for everything. Every decisions are made for you. What kind of adjustment is that?
Well, it wasn't too difficult because when you in a crowd of people and they all doing the same thing, it's not too difficult. And I don't know whether this was planned or whether it was accidental, but I was put in a barracks with a lot of other college graduates, most of them from northeastern schools, from Ivy League schools.
Right.
And so I didn't feel like a stranger at all,
Right, and you're probably exposed to a lot of different cultures, a lot of different people at that time too. Now, is this a segregated unit here?
No, the Army had just been integrated. Harry Truman, integrated the Army at that time.
Right. So in basic training, you're actually into an integrated unit with a lot of college graduates.
That's right.
And does that help out? Because I know education and prejudice kind of go.
Yes, it helped a whole lot.
Okay.
A lot of cultural difference. I remember one thing specifically. My growing up in a religious home, I always was taught to get down on my knees and say my prayers every night, I remember when I got in the barracks the first night, we had these double-decker bunks, And when the time came and go to bed, I got down on my knees. Not that I was very religious at that time, but just by force of habit, I got down on my knees to say my prayers, and the guy that was sleeping on the top bunk, he was a guy from New Jersey. I think he had been to Rutgers University or something like that. He happened to peep over and saw me on my knees. He said, "What the hell you doing?" I said, I'm saying no prayers. I said, don't you say your prayers before you go to bed? And he said something very negative about it, you know. But you know, I noticed I ran into a whole lot of fellows who wanted to act like they were atheists or agnostics or something like that. But some of those fellows I trained with and who had that attitude when they got over there and the mortars started falling. different. You don't find any frontline agnostics.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's what they call it a foxhole conversion.
Yeah.
Like that. Okay. Now, how long does basic training actually last?
It lasted for 2 months.
2 months?
Uh-huh.
All right. Now, do you form close relationships during basic training just because you guys are going through pretty much the same?
Oh, yeah.
All right. And do you tend to gravitate toward people who are around the same area of the country as you, or how does that work?
Well, most, as I said, I don't know how I was thrown with these people, you know, but most of them were from Northeast.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So now, after basic training, what's next? What's the next step?
Well, I came home it was around Christmas at that time, you know, pretty close. And I was transferred. As a matter of fact, I didn't go back to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. I was transferred to Fort Bliss, Texas, for advanced training.
Okay.
And of course, Fort Bliss is right at El Paso, and that's all the way across the state of Texas. I remember that was a long bus ride.
Right there by Juarez.
Yeah.
All right. Now, this is advanced infantry training, or is there a school in?
Yeah, advanced infantry.
All right. And are you pretty much on your own? You're going down there by yourself without?
Yes.
I mean, anybody that you really know?
And I just had orders to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So you go to Fort Bliss. Now, how do they treat you at Fort Bliss? Are you treated with a little more respect than you are at basic training? You're not treated like a dog? Or?
Well, I don't recall that there was any great difference. You know how the Army is. You have to take orders.
All right. And you're still single at this time, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Do you have a girlfriend that you're steady, somebody that you're writing to?
Well, you know, I had several girls, I suppose, that I was writing back home, you know.
Okay. Now, Fort Bliss, what are you actually doing at Fort Bliss now?
Well, just training for combat.
I mean, is it advanced weapons training or?
Oh, yes. A lot of the same things that we had done at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, but just maybe with a little more intensity.
All right. Now, at this point, are you also with a lot of people with college educations, or?
Well, it was more of a mixture when I got to Fort Bliss. Yeah.
All right. And once again, this is integrated troops.
Yes.
At that time. Now, is there any problem with people having to deal with it, or the officers pretty standing on top of it? I know that's early on in as far as integration, and probably the first exposure of a lot of those people.
Yeah, well, no, I really never had any racial problem. I'll tell you, going back to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, strange thing, you know, Fort Jackson is right at Columbia, South Carolina, you know, and of course this is 1951, strictly segregated, and I formed some pretty good ties, you know, relationships with some white fellows there at the camp, you know, but then if you went out of town and you had to go into the black area, and as a matter of fact, they would allow a cab to come on the camp, you know, taxi cab, you know, and you could ride in the taxi cab with somebody of another race, but when you got to the gate, going outside, one of you had to get out. That's a strange thing. That's right.
You're kidding me.
That's right.
So you could do it actually on the base, and then once you got to the...
That's right.
That's bizarre.
It is.
All right. Now, let's get on back to Fort Bliss.
Okay.
Now, how long are you there at Fort Bliss?
I was there for approximately 4 months.
Okay. Now, during this time, are they really giving you... are they kind of tailoring your training toward Korea?
Yes.
Like the kind of...
Yes.
maneuvers and things you're going to be doing.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, it's got to be in your mind that you're going to be in war here pretty soon, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you start getting nervous, you start wondering if you're going to be able to kill somebody, or you got to question if you're going to be able to do it.
Yeah, that kind of bothered me because I've never been a violent person,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and when you're being trained to kill somebody and you're being told that if you learn how to use this gun, it'll save your life, it'll protect you or something like that, and that was never my mentality, so to speak. But
Right.
yet, you know, if you're in a situation like that, you just go with the flow, so to speak.
Right, I understand that. It's just, that's the big question that I always thought of myself, because I've never been in the service, and I thought how the process of training somebody to kill somebody that they don't hate.
Yeah.
I mean that you don't know,
Yeah.
or I mean it's a tough thought to be able to actually do that. So
Yeah.
many people do it, but once again, you're just going through the training, having to do your duty. Okay, so you're there for, you say, about 4 months.
About 4 months.
All right. Now, all right. As after 4 months, then take me there. Is there a formal graduation from advanced training, or is it just?
I
you get
don't
your orders?
recall that there was. I just know that after being there for 4 months, I was allowed to come home for a brief furlough,
Mhm.
and I was ordered to go back to Fort Lawton, Washington.
Okay.
After that,
Did you already have your orders at that point?
yes,
Did you-
I had my orders to
Okay.
go to Fort Lawton, Washington.
Okay, but I mean, did you have orders beyond that to the?
No, just had orders to go to Fort Lawton, Washington.
Okay. All right. So when you're going home now, you finish your basic training and your advanced training,
Mhm.
and you're probably walking tall in that uniform, aren't you?
Oh yeah.
All the little girls looking around there, and,
Yeah.
do you feel different coming home? Do you feel?
Well, I wore my uniform with pride, you know, I felt a little different. I felt that I was serving my country in an honorable fashion, so to speak.
Mhm.
Yes, I was proud of it, you know. I had not volunteered for it, but yet, as I said earlier, I didn't rebel against it.
Right. Okay. So then you end up going to Washington now?
Fort Lawton, yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, and what time of year is this now?
This is in the early summer.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it is summer in Washington.
Yeah.
All right. Now, what are you doing up here? What are your orders up in?
Well, we
What do
were
you-
just kind of hanging around there because we were really getting ready to be shipped out to Korea.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't know that to begin with.
Uh-huh. I wish you'd known that.
I
back-
only stayed there about 2 weeks.
Oh,
in
okay.
Fort Lawton. Fort Lawton.
All right. So you didn't know when you were at home. You didn't know that you were going to be very shortly going
No,
off
no,
to
I didn't.
going off to. All right. Okay. So you're there for about 2 weeks, and then what happens? I mean, tell me your feeling when you understand. Oh my goodness, I'm about to go.
Well, I wasn't necessarily afraid. You know, I suppose I've always been an optimist. I think that things are going to be okay.
Uh-huh.
You know.
Well, and that's, it's funny that people actually tell me that. They said, when I left, it's not that I wasn't nervous, but I just had this feeling that I was going to come home.
Oh yeah.
And then I think about, there's probably a lot of people still over there that have that thought. But it is interesting that you kind of have to be optimistic that you are going to be able to make it back.
Yeah.
All right. Now, so you wait there for about 2 weeks, and then you're ready to go.
Yeah.
Is it by ship now?
By ship.
Okay. Had you ever been on the ocean before?
No, I had not.
Okay. How was the trip?
Well, I tell you what, the most frightening part of it was the first morning that I woke up and didn't see anything in the water. We left one afternoon, and of course when it got dark, you could still see the land behind us.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I woke up the next morning, there was nothing but water.
Uh-huh.
And to be able to just look all around you and see nothing but water.
Mm-hmm.
And
Nowhere to go.
Knowing that I couldn't swim.
Oh, you couldn't swim?
Not very much.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a frightening experience. And first day I got seasick because I wasn't by myself. I suppose most of the fellas did. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And it took about 3 weeks, pretty close to 3. I think, well, 21 days. Yeah, I think to go on that ship. all the way to Korea.
Oh,
Yeah,
man.
you know.
Now, how long did seasickness last?
Oh, just the first day.
Okay.
Yeah, it's first.
All right. Now,
That's a strange feeling if you've never been seasick. I can't explain it to you. You know.
No, I know. And you say you weren't alone, and that's all the way across. People getting on there. I mean, that's just. Luckily enough, I mean, you were able to get over it because I've heard of people who have just about died because they couldn't hold anything down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did you guys cross the equator?
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know if they did
I
one
know
of those.
we went across the Pacific Ocean.
I just wonder if they did one of those ceremonies when you cross like the international date line or the equator. Where
If they did, I don't recall.
Okay. All right. And they probably didn't do that actually at that time.
Yeah.
All right. So 3 weeks, and did you go straight to Korea at that point?
Straight to Korea.
Okay. Where did you land?
Now pretty close to Incheon.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now at that time, were you pretty much prepared, or were they preparing you for what to expect once you got there, or were they trying to get you in the mindset of being ready once you got there to?
Well, yes, I think I remember in training we had one sergeant who was really an old timer, you know. He said, "I'm going to train you so hard that when you get in combat, it'll be like a vacation." So that never happened. But I remember him saying that. You know.
Still looking for that vacation.
Yeah.
All right. So you land pretty close to Incheon.
Yeah.
And then where do you go?
And I really don't know the names of any of the places over there. You see, at that time, the American forces, you know, had already pushed up beyond the 38th parallel. That was the dividing line in Korea. And they had pushed up beyond that, and for some reason, they saw fit not to allow the war to progress that far, and the forces had pulled back. And the American soldiers were just maintaining the 38th parallel. We were just stationed there, and we were not supposed to let the Chinese Reds or the North Koreans come back across the 38th parallel. That was just our job, you know.
Right.
And I was in anti-aircraft artillery.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
And our job was to support the infantry. And we would go right up on the front line with them for about 2 weeks and support, and then we'd pull back, and the other platoon would go up and stay for about 2 weeks. And we were under mortar and artillery fire all the time.
Right, you guys are the targets. You're the ones they want to take in.
Yeah.
Well, talk about from the moment you get there.
Well, from the moment that we got there and started moving up toward the front line position where we were going to be stationed, I think the first thing that scared me was we got pretty close to one of those great big artillery guns. And of course, the guy fired a shot from it. And just the very noise of it, you know, almost shook my foundations, so to speak. And then I think this guy, he was really just trying to scare us. I don't believe there was some guy who was over there. And he pointed over to a hill. He said, "You guys see that hill over there?" He said, "On those hills are bones of the unit that you are replacing." That's a bad thing to tell a man. I don't think that actually was the case, you know.
Welcome to
Korea. Yeah.
It's got to shake you up a little bit,
Yeah.
because you have no idea what to expect at that point. Okay. All right, now you're moving up toward the front lines, and I mean, are you in it immediately, or do you have time to kind of get adjusted to the weather?
Well, that was just about the first day when that happened, you know. So I was in it from the very moment that I got over there, and we were constantly under artillery fire from the enemy. You know, I don't mean that when I say constantly, I don't mean that it happened every day, but you knew that you were capable of being shelled.
Right. Yeah, you have to be prepared to be shelled at any given time. But that kind of comes with being in artillery, right?
Oh,
I mean, that's It's pretty much that's what you want to take out because you're the ones who can do the damage long distance.
Yeah.
Now you guys were just holding the 38th parallel at that time.
That's right.
And I mean, I know at least the president was concerned that there would be a war with China. I think is what it was. So, I mean, did you guys have special orders, or I mean, was there any special understanding about what you were supposed to do, or was it basically just keep firing over there? And
No, we didn't. I'll tell you what, we had forward observer.
mm-hmm.
In other words, if you have any idea about Korea, it's a very hilly country, you know. Well, I guess living in Chattanooga, it can be easy understood, you know. And you have a forward observer, and here's a big hill, and you have a forward observer, and he moves slowly and secretly up this big hill and with his field glasses or something, and he sees an ammunition dump over on the other side, or picks out some target on the other side, and he calls back down to us, you know, we're down at the bottom, and he tells us to set our guns at a certain azimuth, I think they call it, you know,
mm-hmm.
and you would kind of fire large shells over there, and see, actually we were assigned to a half track. You know what a half track is? Kind of a cross between a tank and a truck, you know, and there were 450 caliber machine guns, you know, mounted on the back of this half track.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if he found something over there, then he would tell us to set our guns at a certain point, and we were supposed to fire over the hill. You know, that was basically our task.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you remember the first time you got shelled or a shell came close to you?
No, not specifically, but I know that was all. You know, you could hear when a mortar shell is coming down, you can hear the little whistle of it, you know, and as soon as you hear the whistle, you just hit the ground. If there's a foxhole, then you go to it, but if there's not one close around, you just hit the ground and hope that you'll be low enough so that none of the shrapnel from it will hit you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And that's a constant threat.
Yeah, it's a constant threat.
And you guys dig? I mean, once you get there, do you dig foxholes, or is it?
Yes, once you get there.
Now, how mobile are you? Are you in the same place for a long period of time, or do you guys move around?
Basically, I was pretty close to the same place that I was when I first went over there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe a few hundred yards or something like that, but basically in the same position as when I went over there.
Here, hold on a second. All right, now let's talk about just average daily life. Where are you guys basically in tents or sleeping on the ground?
No,
Do you have barracks?
we are divided into squads. Every platoon has so many squads in it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And each squad has a half track that we maintain. And then you have a bunker also. A bunker is kind of if I can describe it, maybe you dig into the side of a hill.
Mm-hmm.
And then you take some sandbags and you kind of build it up around the outside, you know, so that you are kind of fortified against any shells, any shrapnel from any mortars that might come in.
Uh-huh.
So every squad has its own bunker over there.
Right. So, but are you sleeping in tents while you're on the lines, or is it?
No, you have a sleep. Every soldier has a sleeping bag over there, but you sleep in your bunker.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, who are your best friends at that time? Obviously, just.
Well, just your squad members, the ones that you have. There are 5 of us in a squad.
Mm-hmm.
You have a squad leader, and then you have 2 cannoneers. Those are the people who clean the guns, you know. And then you have a driver and you have a gunner.
Mm-hmm. And what were you doing? What was your
Well,
job?
I started off as a cannoneer, and then I became a half-track driver, and then I became a gunner. And then when I left over there, I was squad leader. And incidentally, the squad leading position called for the rank of sergeant. And of course, I was a corporal at the time. I hadn't made the rank, never did make the rank. But when I got my order to come home, I was told that if I would re-enlist, that they'd give me my rank. So I said, no thanks.
Hold that over your head. Thanks anyway. All right, but I mean, do you remember any of the names of any of the guys? And if you don't, that's fine. But any of the guys in your squad that were friends?
As a matter of fact, this is almost unbelievable. Less than a year ago, I got a long distance call from California. And the guy said, "Is this Virgil Caldwell?" I said, "Yes, it is." He said, "This is Juan Samala." And the name rang a bell. And I remembered that I had been in Korea in the Army. And here was a fellow who remembered me. He remembered that I was from Tennessee. And he told his daughter about it, who lives in Nashville, you know. And anyway, he got on a computer and tracked me down. And we had a real good conversation, as a matter of fact, and he came since that time. He has come to Nashville to visit his daughter, and he came by to see me. You know?
Isn't that nice?
I just think after all, that's more than 50 years ago, you know, and I had never, well, as a matter of fact, I don't think I'd even thought about this guy before, you know. He was of Hawaiian descent, so to speak, you know, but we were real good friends.
Isn't that funny?
That's right.
It just pops out of the blue. Do you guys pick up automatically? Or I mean, it's probably odd to see somebody out of uniform and in that situation.
Yeah.
All right. Now, what is the food like over there? I mean, do you get hot meals at all?
Yes, you get hot meals over there. Food not any different from what you just eat ordinarily. You know, I think the Army plans it so that the men won't feel any different than they do at home. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not like mother's cooking, but
you know, we go so far with that.
Yeah.
That's funny. Now, you say you guys would be on the line for a while, and then they'd pull you back and let somebody.
Yeah, but you still be under fire even when you pull back. I mean, artillery fire.
Mm-hmm. So, but when you're on the line, is it basically you got to be on guard
at all times?
At all times. Are you able to get any rest, or how do you guys work?
Well, yes, you just accustom yourself to what your situation is, or maybe psych yourself out to it, if that's better. You know what's going on. You know that a war is going on, and you know that an artillery shell might come in at any time. Mm-hmm. But it's not the kind of thing that you just dwell on. But even though you know it's going to happen, you just adjust yourself to it.
Can you hear the shells in your sleep? I mean, when you hear that whistle, would it wake you up?
I think you kind of get used to that, you know. But that's a chilling kind of feel when you hear the mortar shells coming in, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wonder if this one's got your name on it.
Oh yeah.
Now, does it make it stressful though? Just the idea that at any given time a shell could be coming. I mean,
yeah, but you soon get used to it.
How long does that take? I mean,
it doesn't take a very long time. You know that you're over there.
And it could probably make you go crazy if you don't get used to it.
Yeah.
Now, how long would you actually be on the line before they pull you back?
2 weeks. We stay up 2 weeks, and then we come back for 2 weeks. Go back up for 2 weeks, come back up.
Okay, so when you come back for 2 weeks, then, I mean, is there recreation? Is there a place to kind of relax? And
not necessarily, because you're still in a combat zone.
Right.
You know.
But, I mean, like showers and things like that? I mean, are you able to?
I'm trying to recall. You know, it's been a long time. Mm-hmm. I don't recall that there were any showers. Really, you know, every soldier has a steel helmet, and if there is any water around, you know, you take your steel helmet, and that's your wash pan, so to speak. You know, mm-hmm. That's basically what you take your bath out of.
Right.
Yeah.
That's funny. All right. Now, does it make it easier when you're, even though you're getting shelled all the time, does it make it easier that you're not actually seeing the enemy, that you're firing at a distance? And And
Yes, I guess it is. I'll tell you something. As I said earlier, you know, I wore my uniform with pride and all that, and I felt like I was rendering a service. But one day I was over there, and it just kind of dawned upon me, you know, what am I doing over here? Really? Here I'm 10,000 miles from home, shooting at some guys I don't know. I couldn't hate them because I don't know them. And I'm dodging bullets that they're firing at me, and they probably don't hate me because they don't know me. I said, what is this all about? I said, these are not my enemies. My enemies are back at City Hall in Brownsville. I said, I don't have any business over here. And really, you know, I don't want to sound too radical, but I think that some wars are fought for political reasons more than real threats, you know, to the nation. I think that they are to advance somebody else's political career. You know,
it is, and it's a shame to lose lives in that respect. I agree wholeheartedly. And it's a huge difference coming off of World War II when everybody was together. This was, I mean, we are being attacked, and we've got to do this. But in a police type action like this, which is actually, as you said, I mean, as you implied, but it was the political ramifications. It was a communist. I mean, it was a communist versus not communist, and it was more just to prove a point. And the number of lives we lost over there.
That's right.
And the number of political and the amount of political damage it did, because it wasn't very popular over here either.
No, it wasn't. And you know, we were told that we were over there to make the world safe for democracy. That was the catchphrase at that time, you know.
But you were there just to stay alive, and I'm sure most of the guys that were there with you at the time too. Right. Now, are you getting letters from home very often?
Yes.
How often do you get mail?
One of the things that you look forward to is mail call, you know, and I don't recall just how often you would get, but it was a regular occurrence. You wouldn't have to wait very long.
Who always writing?
Well, naturally, my mother wrote me just about every day. I don't think she missed a day writing me, and of course her letters would reflect my father's thoughts too. She did the writing, you know. And then I had two girls that I was particularly writing to at that time. The one that I'm married to now, and then there was another that I was writing to.
So that's got to make it nice just to have that to think about home. Do you think about home when you're on the line?
Oh, very definitely.
Okay, now, are you meeting or in contact with any of the Korean civilians, South Korean civilians, or any of the natives of the area?
There was one little boy named Kim Young-song, and I don't know how he got with us, but anyway, he was kind of our houseboy, so to speak. You know, every squad had this bunker, and he was kind of our bunker servant, and I don't know where he came from. I just don't recall that, but he was a Korean. You know?
I mean, that's got to be kind of an interesting culture shift too, just to know.
I'll tell you something else too. When you look at the condition, the economic condition of the people over there, really, literally, some people living under bridges. You know, everybody in America, to the individual almost, is living in luxury. When you compare that to the people who were living in South Korea at that time. I'm sure the situation has changed quite a bit now, but at that time, everybody over there, you know, was just barely eking out a mere existence.
And I think for a lot of people coming back, especially the ones who were living here in I won't say poverty, but meager means.
Yeah.
And then they get over there and they see that a lot of it seems even uncivilized
Oh, yeah.
to a certain point.
Yes, it
With the
does.
honey wagons and the things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
I tell you a bittersweet experience that I had, and I say the sweet part of it is I'm still alive. But the bitter part of it is I want to tell you exactly what happened. During that winter over there, the winter of 52, yeah, the winter of 52 and coming into 53, extremely cold. I don't remember the temperature, but extremely cold.
it was like the coldest in like 100 years, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they said.
Yeah,
it really
you know.
was.
And every squad was issued a little stove to go in your bunker, And anyway, we were supposed to burn diesel fuel in those stoves. That was ordered, But it got so cold over there until the diesel fuel would not run through the little pipes in the stove. And everybody, I don't want to say something that maybe I have to back up. But 99.75% of everybody over there was burning gasoline because the diesel fuel wouldn't run through those pipes over there, But it so happened that we had something wrong with the stove which they issued us. And I happened to be on guard, so you have a half track over here that you stand guard on it all the time. And then you have your bunker over here just a few yards away, And I was on guard over at the half track. And our stove blew up for some reason. Now think about it now, you're in combat, you're in a secret position over here. And here's a stove blowing up and here's fire going up, This gives our position away.
You might as well just jump up and say, we're here.
Yeah. So and they start shelling. And here I am over there, about to freeze to death. And here's the fire over here, but you're scared to get close to the fire because the shells are coming in. But the bitter part about it is if you know anything about the Army, they have to always get even with you, so to speak. Our whole squad was court-martial. So everybody was doing it. Everybody was burning the gasoline in the fuel, but because of the fact that they found out, officially, that we were doing this, everybody else was doing it, but they didn't get caught, so to speak, And they had some little ambitious second lieutenants over there who wanted to make a name for themselves, who served as prosecuting attorneys, and we had a court-martial over there. And our whole squad was court-martialed for the fact that we were going against orders using gasoline, and that's when we were supposed to be. And the last 2 months that I was in Korea, I drew $10 a month. I was supposed to be drawing whatever the Army salary was for a corporal at that time, and that plus combat pay. But they made us pay, the Army made us pay for every piece of equipment that was burned up,
You are kidding.
No, that's the truth. That ought to be on the record somewhere.
Yeah.
I drew $10 a month. Not only, but the others in the squad too, $10 a month, because we had to pay for. It didn't affect my discharge. I still got an honorable discharge. So.
You know what you should have said? You should have just marched up there and said, "I quit."
So that's a bittersweet experience. As I said, the sweet part of it, considering that we gave our position away, and that the shells started coming over, and I don't have a scratch on me. That's the sweet part of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm sure that was the reason why they felt that you needed to be disciplined, but that's, I think, to an extreme. That's
oh yeah, well, the Army is known for going to the street.
Right. Now, did you all get R&Rs while you were there?
Yeah.
Or?
Yeah, came back after I'd been over there about 9 months. They stayed over there a year. After I'd been there for.
So it actually was a tour, like a 1 year tour, or was it?
1 year tour.
Okay.
Yeah. And we came back to Japan, Stayed over there for about a week, yeah, and then had to go back, you know.
Now, what was Japan like at that time?
I certainly don't want to go into details about that. But I probably broke most of the Ten Commandments, you know. But it was a relief. It was a relief from being in combat. You know?
Right. I mean, you gotta really at this point. It probably just takes you at least a week just to kind of get the stress out of your system, doesn't it?
Yeah, to see what life is really like. You know, you have been away from civilization for 9 months. You know, I don't think I'd even seen a girl, you know, in all this time. You know, so just coming back. But the thing about it, you have to go back. You can't stay there forever.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And if I recall correctly, that was my first flight too. We flew from Korea to Japan this week, and then after being over there for a week, then we flew back to.
Did you try Japanese food?
Yes, I don't remember anything specifically about it.
Okay, I didn't know if Japanese food was very common over here in the States. Did you get any souvenirs to take home though? Anything for your mom or your girlfriends?
No, I don't recall anything that I brought home.
Okay, but it's only for a week.
Yeah.
And then you got to go back. That's got to be tough to go back to work.
Yeah.
All right. So, but when you come back, you know, you just have 3 months basically, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, do you have a calendar? Are you counting down?
Well, no. Well, you know, you don't know that it's gonna be that. You think because of maybe what somebody else has done, you know, that's what's going to be the time. But I mean, you have no control over that. If you're in the Army, you're still under somebody else's control.
Right. Well, and they actually can extend you as long as they want.
They're doing that now, you know.
Right. Right. But even at that time, I know people were talking about this with World War II. It was you know the war plus 6 months. And I know they were extending people even at that time, where they could have kept you basically over there as long as they wanted to. So you really don't know exactly when you're going to get to come home. Does that make it tough, or does it make it easier?
Well, I tell you, as time goes on, you kind of become hardened to it, or deadened to it. Maybe I might use that term, you know. In other words, you are not your own person. You know, you are Uncle Sam's property, so to speak. And there's a certain amount of brainwashing, you know, that goes on. Legalized brainwashing, I guess you might call it, you know. And, you just go with the flow. You just put up with it because you really don't have any choice in the matter.
All right, now talk about that winter again. Now the winter, aside from the the incident that happened, I mean, talking bitter cold.
Yeah.
I mean,
I tell you what, it doesn't bother you as much because when it got cold, it stayed cold. It remained cold, and it remained cold all over the winter over there. So it's not like you hear somebody on giving the news now, and they say it's going to get down to 6 degrees above zero, and you know, it almost scares you to death. But you know, that's not going to last for 2 or 3 days. But when it got cold over there, it was cold the whole winter. So once you got used to it, you know, it just didn't bother you. But I just remember it was extremely cold that winter of 52 going into 53.
Yeah, they really did say. I mean, I've heard people say that was in the coldest winter in like 100 years.
Yeah.
Now, were you aware of what was going on all around the country and all through the war at that time with the?
No, we didn't get a whole lot of information. We just took orders, you know, to defend to hold that position, hold the 38th parallel, and we would have a forward observer to go up and pick out a target, and we would fire at the target. That was basically what I did for a year.
So you were concerned basically with where you were and nothing else
on
the outside, which I guess would have to make it easier. All right. Hey, did you try any kimchi? I've got to ask everybody that goes there.
What?
Kimchi, the food in Korea? Some
No.
kind of a hot cabbage or something like that.
No, if I did, I don't recall.
Okay. No, I have to ask everybody who was over there just because I know that.
I remember one thing. We, for some reason, and I don't know what happened, but we were cut off from our supply line, food supply line, for about a week, and I ate rice for about a week.
Oh,
yeah, I remember that was the biggest food that we had for about. I don't know what happened, but I know the main supply line that our food was coming from was because we were cut off from it for about a week.
Mm-hmm. Probably best that you not know why.
Yeah. So I remember eating rice for about a week.
Now, did you were getting shelled a lot? I mean, was anybody hurt? Was anybody get any shrapnel?
None of the fellows in my immediate squad were hurt. But I tell you what was really scary though, when we were backed up, with, as I said, we go up for 2 weeks and then we pull back about 2 weeks. After we were pulled back, if there was shelling, and we would see them bringing the bodies back on the split, men who had been killed or wounded, who had been up front. That was really a scary situation.
It is. It makes it real, doesn't it?
It does. And you know that, after your 2 weeks, you're going to have to go back up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it might be you next.
Oh, yeah. And I recall once that I was sitting on a log, and I moved off. I know now it was divine providence that moved me off of it, and I went over a few yards away, and in just 2 or 3 minutes, the mortar shell came down and hit the very spot where I had been sitting. If I had been there, I would have been in the graveyard.
And that's got to make a lot. It probably adds a lot of perspective to your life.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, did you start feeling like at that time, once I get back, I got to take life a little more seriously?
Oh,
it does. I mean, I would just think. I have no idea.
Yeah.
All right. Now, you're there for about a year.
About a year.
Right. Now, tell me what is probably the most fear that you ever felt there? Can you remember one moment where you just...
Well, the day after well, not the day, but anyway, after I got my orders, to come back home, we went back to the place where we were going to board the ship, and I don't know, somehow a plane, an enemy plane, had come across and had gotten close to the place where we were and started shelling there. We were away from the combat zone there. And I don't know how that plane had actually come that far, and started shelling there. And my first fear, here I am, I've come through all this and getting ready to go home. And now they're going to get me. Yeah,
they're coming after you. They don't want you to leave.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. And I don't know, the idea of coming home after being over there a year was just so delightful that I don't have no words to describe it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we came back by way of the Philippines. And we stayed there one night, but we were not given any passes. They wouldn't allow us to get off the ship.
Mm-hmm. But you don't want to miss that ship anyway, right?
No. So we stayed in, and it was about another 3 weeks on the water.
Mm-hmm. Was this less seasick? I mean, was it a little easier?
Got seasick the first day, and after that it was all right.
Mm-hmm. I mean, was there any rough weather or any?
Not that I recall.
Okay. It still takes you 3 weeks to get back.
Yeah.
At least you're coming back to a little more pleasant.
Oh yeah.
Surrounding. Now, when you're coming back now, are you coming back for discharge, or do you still owe a commitment to the service at that point?
Well, it was pretty much understood that after you had spent your time over there, that you were going to get discharged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we came back to San Francisco.
Under the bridge?
Yeah, under the Golden Gate Bridge.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's home, isn't it? I mean,
Oh yeah.
all right.
And we caught a plane and came to Fort Breckenridge, Kentucky. Yeah.
Now, is that for discharge or?
Yeah, well, separation, yeah. You know, you get your honorable discharge or whatever discharge, 6 years, you stay in the reserve for 6 years, you know. But I got my separation papers. And I suppose the most distasteful experience that I had was after getting my separation papers, after having been over there fighting to save the world for democracy, so to speak. I had to ride the back seat of the bus. That was really a negative. That's really a negative memory that I had. Here I am sitting here with these papers in my hand, separation papers. I've been fighting for my country, and I've got to get on the back seat of this bus to come home. That's the kind of thing that you don't forget.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's the kind of thing that, I mean, luckily, I know in a lot of respects, like with my kids coming up, they don't even understand how that could happen. Yeah. But, I mean, you've just risked your life.
Yeah.
And you're home, and home is, it's a different battle.
Oh, yeah.
All right. And now, is that are you talking about the bus ride there from Kentucky coming back to
Jackson, Tennessee? That's where I was still living at the time.
All right. Now, but I mean, are you treated with as far as just the normal person? Are you treated with any more respect, or do you feel like?
Well, I tell you what, on the Army base, when you have been overseas and you have come back, you are treated with much more respect than before going over, you know. In other words, before you go over, you will do this, you will do that. But after you come back, it's will you do this?
Yeah.
After you serve your time.
Yeah, you've earned just a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, and you said they offered you sergeant now, right?
Yeah. That is if I had re-enlisted.
Was there any thought in your mind at all?
No. I said, you can make me a 5-star general. It's the type of experience. I wouldn't take $1 million for it, but you couldn't pay me $1 million to go and do it again.
You know what? And to a man, everybody says that.
Yeah.
Everybody does say that. All right. Now, so you take a bus then back to Jackson?
Yeah.
All right. And is your family expecting you?
Oh, yeah.
Back? We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Are they there to meet you?
Oh, yeah. And I remember, you know, got a little, what do you call it, mustering out pay, something like that. I think mine was about $700, which was a whole lot of money. And I tell you what, when I would write to my mother while I was overseas, naturally I'd tell her to pray for me, you know, and I don't know, my letters were almost sermons, so to speak, you know. I was depending on the Lord to bring me home safely and all of it. And after I got home and I got that little mustard out pay, I was staying out till the wee hours of the morning, you know. And my mother came in after I'd been out real late one night. She said, "What happened to the Lord? In your letter, that's all you talked about. I haven't heard you mention it." So I guess I was making up a lost time. Yeah.
Hold on one second. All right, now, when you get home, to start with, is there any adjustment as far as not being in a war zone and you know, being able to sleep?
Well, yes, I tell you what, I could, for a short while, I could hear an automobile backfire or something, and I was ducked, you know. It's just a combination, you know, when you've been in combat zone like that. So it took a little adjusting on that part. But I really got back in the swing of things pretty soon. As I said, I had never had any desire to be a teacher, but I was discharged on July 17th of 1953. And in August of 1953, just a month, I ran up on a guy that I had known in school, and he asked me, was I certified to teach music? And I said, yes, I am. He said, you need a music teacher in Union City, Tennessee. He said, you ought to go up there and apply for the job, you know. Well, you know, I was 35, but I didn't have any particular desire. But anyway, I went up and I applied for the job, and I got it. And I began a teaching career right there. So from July 17th until about the middle of August, you know, I was unemployed, and I haven't been unemployed since.
Isn't that something?
I began teaching. And during the, I suppose about October or something like that, I was at a football game, and I saw the lady who was my wife now. She had been one of my girlfriends, but we had, you know, been off and on. I saw her at a football game, and I didn't know where she was, but anyway, I went and we kind of got back together. And in less than a year, we were married. You know, and that's been 51 years ago.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
So now you got a job and a wife.
Oh, yeah.
And we're talking about a year out of Korea.
Yeah, and she's also teaching, but at another place. But it just so happened that a vacancy occurred on the faculty where I was teaching in Union City, and the superintendent asked me if my wife was, we just got married, asked me if my wife was teaching. I said yes, and he asked if she had any desire to work there in that system. So naturally she did, you know. So she came there and she got a job. That was in 1954.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she started teaching now too.
All right, now,
and then I finally got to go to graduate school, you know.
You did get to go to graduate. Where'd you go to graduate school?
Columbia University in New York City.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, how'd you get to school up there?
Well, it was recommended to me by a friend of mine, yeah, who had been there. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, living in New York City, that's a little bit of a jump from.
Well, it is, but you know, I've been around the world. Yeah.
No, I'm just talking about, you know, a kid from Brownsville.
Yeah,
or,
yeah.
You know, I mean,
right.
Brownsville to New York's not a logical jump. Of course, you're right. You're a world traveler and
that's right.
combat veteran.
And I tell you the strangest thing, and I went there for 4 summers. See, I began teaching. I would teach for 9 months, and then I went to school during the summers, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And in the summer of 1957, I was in the dining hall at Columbia University. And I looked up and I saw a guy. I saw him looking at me. He was of Italian descent, named Bob Cassioli. And we started looking at each other and realized that he slept over in the next bunk from me in the first barracks that I went to in Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Isn't that something?
So we really had a good reunion right there, you know.
Did he talk about his experience? What happened to him?
Yes, I don't recall specifically where he went. He didn't go with me, you know.
Mm-hmm.
When I was transferred out of there, I don't think any of the fellas that I had been with initially went there, you know.
Right, but up until that time, I mean, from the time when you got back up until that time, or even up to now, I mean, did you talk about your experiences, or did you try to just push it to your back of your mind? And
well, I didn't necessarily have any reason to try to forget it. You know, I talked about it just normally, but I didn't necessarily make a point of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you try to keep in touch with any of the other guys in your squad, or?
No, I didn't. As a matter of fact, until I got this call, as I said, less than a year ago from Juan Samala.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first person that I had seen or heard anything about, you know, since we were together overseas.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Do you guys have reunions, or I mean, not that you attend, but have you heard of any reunions?
No, I have not heard of it.
Okay. You know that they will have reunions. I guarantee they'll have reunions, and I can tell you how you can find out too, in case you were interested in seeing the guys again. All right. Now, you say you're married, and
yeah, I got married in May of 1954.
All right. Now, did you have children?
Yeah, I have 4. 4 children.
Okay. Well, let's start with the oldest.
All right, the oldest is Cedric. He was born in 1956.
And where's Cedric now?
He's in Nashville.
Okay. And does he have children?
Yes, he has 3 children.
All right. Their names?
Ryan, Jade, Jade, and Jalen, Jaylon.
Okay. All right. And his wife? Is he married?
Yeah. Angela. No, Angelique.
Okay. And what part of town are they in? I'm from Nashville.
What's that called?
Hickory Hollow, that exit.
Okay. Bell Road?
Yeah.
My mom's out there.
Yeah, sure. I think, what's the name of that street?
Bell Road? Oh, the one you turn off to go into that city.
Yeah.
Because it's Bell Road that way.
Well, really, you turn off old Hickory Boulevard to go on the street. Where they live, anyway.
Then you go opposite the mall.
Right. That's where my mom lives, off Nolensville Road now.
Yeah.
Is that Brentwood? Brentwood is the general area, isn't it?
Brentwood, I-65 up in there?
It's right before you get, a little bit before you get to I-65, going back that way, I believe.
Okay. It's far down? Well, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Now, all right. So Cedric is the oldest, right?
Yes, he's the oldest.
All right.
And then I have another son, Victor, and he's married and he has 2 children.
Okay. What's his wife's name to start with?
Sharon.
All right. And his children?
His children, Camille and Victoria.
Okay. And where are they?
They stay in Franklin.
Okay.
But he and Cedric, my other son, are in business together. They have a music studio, a recording studio over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then you have one more, or 2 more children?
I have 2 more. I have a daughter here who teaches in the public school system, Scotty. And I have another daughter who is his wife. Her name is Christy.
Okay.
Yeah. And she also teaches in the public school system.
All right.
Yeah.
Where do they teach?
Scotty teaches Redback. And Christy, what's the school?
CSLA.
CSLA?
Yeah.
So my wife teaches when she's out in Baltimore.
Oh, really? Yeah.
All right. Now, at the time that you spent in the service, now how did that affect your life afterward? I mean, did you feel like a lot of people come back and they say like they feel like there's a little more sense of purpose, or that they live for a reason? I mean, can you think of a lesson that you took out of that experience, or something out of the experience that really shaped the rest of your life?
I really can't say that I can. I suppose it probably strengthened my faith in God. To be able to go over there and be in a dangerous situation when you are under fire at all times, and come out with no defects whatsoever. I think just overall that probably, of course I didn't know at that time that I was going to be a minister. But certainly I've preached a lot of sermons where I have referred to the fact that that was the purpose of my being preserved, of my life being saved.
But that's such a valuable lesson to be able to pass on, from your experience, to be able to pass with experience on to later generations. Now let's talk about from that time. Now you taught at Union City. How long did you stay there at Union City?
15 years.
You were there 15 years?
15
All right, and your wife also there. Then where'd you go from there?
Came to Chattanooga.
Okay.
I was called into the ministry in 1960, and that's where I was teaching, at the time. And I was called to pastor my first church in 1962 in Dresden, Tennessee. And I continued teaching while I pastored that first church, And then I stayed there for 2 years and 3 months, and I was called to a larger congregation back at Brownsville, Tennessee, where I had been born. And I still continue to live and teach in Union City. But I go down on Sunday, you know, on Wednesday nights. And I stayed there for 4 years. And then I was called to church here. And this was a full-time pastorate, you know, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved, and that was really a step out on faith, because I quit my job, my wife quit hers, and sold her home there, came to Chattanooga. But I've been here almost 37 years now, and I haven't regretted it for 1 minute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good long time, 37 years.
Yeah, it is.
You still play music though?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
All right. Now, do they still call you Sonny Boy?
Yes, people who know me from way back. As a matter of fact, I didn't tell you. There's you asked me about brothers or sisters.
Uh-huh.
I had 2 sisters, and we are all half. My father was married 3 times,
Mm-hmm.
and he had a daughter by his first wife, and then he stayed. And that wife was killed in an automobile buggy accident in the 20s. And then he married another lady, and 1 child, sister was born to that union. And that wife died with complications of childbirth in 1927. And then my father met my mother in 1929, married, and I was born in 1930. So I had 2 sisters, we were all half, but the first one was 26 years older. Is 26, she's still living. Matter of fact, she celebrated her 100th birthday on September the 15th.
I'll be darned.
Last year. And she still calls me Sonny Boy.
That's something. Where's she?
She's in Hayward County. She still stays in Hayward County.
I'll be darned.
Has her right mind. When I go down there to see her, she walks out on the porch and talks to me.
That calls you Sonny Boy.
Yeah, calls me Sonny Boy.
That's hysterical. That's the last one calling you Sonny Boy? I'll call you Sonny Boy.
All right. I'm an old Sonny Boy.
All right.
Bro, tell him that story of jumping over the fence and your dad
Oh.
coming to your rescue.
Well, okay. We were living in Jackson. And we lived right across the street from Mary High School. And there was a store right around the corner from where we lived. And I was about 10 years old, I think. And anyway, my father sent me to the store to buy something for him. I don't know what it was. But anyway, instead of going down to the corner and turning and going down to the store, there was a little chain fence across the schoolyard. And they were they had planted some grass trying to get it to grow, and I just jumped over this little chain fence and ran across the schoolyard. And one of the teachers, who was T.R. White, we called him Professor White, happened to be standing and looking out the window when I jumped and ran across the grass. And he hollered out and said, "Get off that grass, you little red-headed fool." And he didn't know that my daddy was standing on the porch, and my daddy heard him. And he hollered out in a very strong voice, "That boy ain't no fool." And I felt like $1 million, you know. I said, every boy needs to have an experience like that in his life. And when he heard my daddy say that, he got back in there. He didn't say anything else. That wasn't justifying my doing that. I shouldn't have done that. But I can remember that I felt like $1 million.
That is hysterical. That is so funny. All right. Now, is there anything else you'd like to talk about that we didn't cover in the interview? Anything you could think of that we might have missed? That's the toughest part, because as soon as you get in the car, you're going to remember something.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I had a very delightful teaching career. I taught for 15 years, and I was band teacher, and I was choir director, and I taught a full schedule of social studies, you know. And then I tell you what, I was a great lover I was a great lover in my early years. I was a great lover of jazz. I felt that if jazz was going to be played, I had to play it.
Mm-hmm.
But then when it started dawning upon me that the Lord wanted me to be a minister, I had a great conflict because I knew that there was no consistency in being a jazz musician, especially a professional, jazz musician, and being a preacher at the same time. Most people are not broad-minded enough to accept that, To me, music is music, and I don't necessarily associate jazz with evil, but a lot of people don't see it like that.
Well, it's expression, though, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think it's because the lifestyle of some of the people that were expressing it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's why this.
And jazz is played in some places where a whole lot of other things go on,
Mm-hmm.
So, but at any rate, that was, I ran from the call to the ministry for several years, but finally it began to play so heavily upon me until I couldn't stand it any longer. So in 1960, on the first Sunday in July, which was my 30th birthday, I preached my first sermon, which incidentally was the longest sermon I ever preached. Even my mother told me I was long-winded.
You want to make a good impression.
Yeah.
That's it. Now, and now, your sons are now recording, right? I mean,
Yes.
They have a studio in Nashville.
Yeah.
And what kind of music do they? I mean, is it a studio?
Primarily contemporary gospel.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Are they in Nashville or are they in Franklin?
In Nashville. Well, one lives in Franklin. That's in the greater Nashville area.
Oh yeah, exactly.
But he comes over, see, because the studio is in the basement of my older son's house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Incidentally, the name of that studio was named after him, called Father's Image.
Really?
Yeah.
Kind of taught him music. His first music teacher.
Yeah.
Have they recorded you? Have you?
Yes, and we're getting ready with my son-in-law here. We're getting ready to make another recording now. It's in the planning stage.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Do they release it or they just keep it? I mean, is it released? Is it like?
No, not yet. No, it's not
Okay.
yet.
No, I mean, but
the one before, yeah. But it was, I'm thinking about, this thing I must tell Jesus, they did that in the studio over there, but it was, when I say released, it was not advertised publicly, It's something privately done.
Right.
So, yeah.
So you can find it, but it's not actually promoted.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
But that's got to be quite flattering, though, right? I mean,
yeah.
to have that effect on your kid. Now, do you keep up at all with what's going on in the war now? And because you had the sentiment about the political aspect of the war, and there's huge, obviously through Vietnam, there was a huge political aspect to it, and even now, there's a lot of sentiment that it's more political and less. Do you keep up with it?
Very definitely. And I don't agree with it, and I know that with the mindset of our nation now, that might not be a popular thing to say, but I couldn't be a hypocrite about it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with it. I don't think that we having business over there. I don't.
I don't think it's. I think it's kind of split. I do. I think it's split half and half with people that agree and with people that do not agree.
Yeah.
And I'll publicly say that I agree with you wholeheartedly. I don't think there's any reason to.
I think one of the great dangers that we face now in America is that we have gotten to the place whereas if you express your opinion and it's in disagreement with the powers that be, that some people look upon you as being un-American. Well, I think that America is all about freedom of speech. And whenever we get to the place where we are going to try to muffle the sounds of those who disagree with us, well, I think we are on the verge of self-destruction.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. You can't pull the peer pressure on you, and that's that's another conversation in itself, especially from my perspective. I'm talking to the Vietnam guys coming back, because I think a lot of it is based on that. I think a lot of it is based on the idea that they were treated so poorly coming back that now they use that same power to say, you can't do that. That's anti-American. You've got to support you've got to support the policy, and it's not that you're anti-troops, but you're anti-policy, and that's exactly where I am. I'm not anti-troops, I'm anti-policy.
I know what you mean. I tell you, I think somebody who gets into power is gonna need to have the guts to say to some other world leaders, what does Isaiah say, come now and let us reason together. And that they should say, let's sit down at the conference table and settle our differences at the conference table, rather than sending young people to shed their blood out on the battlefield. You see, old rich men make wars, and young poor men have to fight wars, and that's not right. That's not right.
Well, and beyond that, and this is from experience from all the interviews I've done, the people who suffer in war are the children and the old people. They're the ones who suffer. And, it's not, I mean, people died, yes, and there's a lot of devastating war is hell. But the children and the old people who really are defenseless and have nothing to do with it are the ones who end up suffering through it all. And that's a shame. That's what's missed. To try to, whatever the objective is, that's really what's a shame. All right. Well, so is there anything else you'd like to talk about? We got a couple more minutes. If there's anything you can think of.
No, I don't think so.
Anything we missed that you're thinking? All right. Well, listen, I want to thank you for taking the time to come in here to start with, and for generations and everyone who doesn't have a voice. I thank you for the service that you've done and for stepping forward and asking what you could do. And I thank you for bringing them in here. Finally, catching the tail end of it, you were able to get in. So thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
All right.